Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show, we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Lincoln Lawyer Season 1, Episode 2. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, first and foremost, this episode gave us a little more insight into Maggie and Mickey's relationship, and it's kind of what I thought it was, why she was so, very particular about, oh, get here at this time, and him being 15 minutes, why that was such an issue, because I think for her, it's just, him not keeping his promises seems like something he's probably done in the past, and you can tell over the episode, Mickey's starting to feel he even jokes to Maggie when she's like, oh, I need you to pick up Haley. He's like, oh, so it's good. That means you're either in such a bind, you're calling me for help, or you're starting to trust me again, but later on, he's kind of like, hey, because he turns out that the thing she was all dressed up for last episode was a parent-teacher conference, but he's like, oh, why didn't you let me? We could have gone together. She's like, let's take this one step at a time. I need you to be in Haley's life. Haley needs you to be in her life. So, because it seems like he's hoping to make amends with Maggie, because her and Haley are still his background. So, I think it's probably him trying to be in a position where maybe they can rekindle, which is so interesting how that works out. But I think there have been examples of those types of relationships where it's like, hey, you got divorced from someone, then you remarried someone else, and then you went back and got back with your first ex or something like that. I mean, it doesn't even have to be marriage. I'm sure relationships are just like that too, but still, I think that's so interesting. Because even he talks about it a little bit later on with Izzy about the complicated circumstances of, divorced from Maggie, then married Lorna, and they worked together still, but they ended up divorcing because it was just kind of a rebound situation. Now she's dating and now getting engaged with, and getting married to, Cisco. So I said, it's kind of a complicated thing, but in the end, he is happy for him because Lorna ends up bringing it up, and he's just like, no, it's just, I even love that he jokes with Lorna about, granted, Cisco's a good guy. I mean, he's not Mickey, but Holler, but still, it's like, she's like, yeah, my mom is, that's something my mom's going to say about that, because I guess Lorna's mom really, really liked Mickey. So, but it's like, no, at the end of the day, he's a good guy, and I just want you to be happy. Because it also seems like Cisco's kind of got a complicated past. He kind of ran with a tough crowd, it seems like. So I'm assuming we're going to kind of dive into that a little bit later on in the season, maybe. Since they went through the trouble of setting that up, so we'll see. So obviously, the episode plays out kind of what I thought, where it does seem like probably over the course of the season, he's going to be working other of Jerry's clients. In this particular, while he's dealing with the whole Trevor situation, he also helps out a new client, Terrell, this episode. Terrell was going to take a plea because if he, but they were going to make it like a time served thing because he was locked up for a while, and so he got a year, whereas if he goes to trial, there's a good chance he would have gotten 3, and he has a child. And once again, very much like the Izzy thing, here's someone else that Mickey relates to. It's like, right, he knows what it's like to be in a situation that kind of pulled you away from your child. In his particular case, it was his vices, his drug use that sent him kind of spiraling, it seems like. But I love that he was able to kind of help out Terrell pretty quickly in regard of finding out the security camera the camera from an nearby ATM, and they were going to bring that into evidence, and because this was about Terrell selling some bootleg shirts or something like that outside of some place, and then apparently pushing the cop. But Terrell says the cop pushed him because actually they have history. The fact is that cop never forgave Terrell for stealing his girlfriend back in 10th grade. And Terrell kind of admitted he chastised the dude a little bit about it, and that's what led to the altercation. But all Mickey had to do was threaten, there's footage from this camera on the ATM, and the cop talked to the prosecutor and was like, don't do that, because it's not going to look good on him, so they're going to drop it, and Mickey ends up getting them to take it down to only him selling the bootleg stuff and not even like the quote unquote assault, and also get it expunged from his record. So he's going to be out a little bit sooner, especially because now he's served the time, so he's able to get home, which I thought was pretty dope. I also love that Haley ended up being there to see the case, which she's never done that before. But I guess it was also because her dad's like, her and her dad have been distant probably because of this past year, just him going through everything he went through. So now she wanted to probably like spend as much time as she can with him. The fact is she's staring at his crime scene photo because she's in the Lincoln with him when he's working on a case. And so she talks about the fact is she's seen stuff that her mom's worked on. And he's like, what's that talking about? And she's like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, that seemed interesting that she felt the need to bring that up and then kind of pulled back. So I wonder what it is that she's witnessed at her mom's, because she's like, oh, you defend murderers and stuff like that. He's like, it's no different. So she must see some of the very hardcore stuff that her mom works on or something like that, because her mom's working on a trafficking case right now, I think. Maybe it's something of that nature that Maggie's currently working on, so we'll see. We also got introduced to the guy that's the prosecutor that's going after Trevor for his wife Laura, as well as the yoga instructor's murder. So the guy, well, it's interesting because Mickey was asking about that guy and Maggie was like, okay, he's good. The same guy was asking Maggie about Mickey and it's like, oh, he's good. But then I knew something was up the moment the guy was like, so what's your husband? Where was Mickey? He's like, what? It's like, yeah, he was gone for a year. Maggie knows not to bring up people like Mickey's business. Like, it seems like people are aware to some extent, but like it's not public knowledge enough. So to the point that like you could tell Maggie's not trying to like run his name in the mud. So she's like, yeah, he was, nowhere. And then that same lawyer used it against him in court, which even the judge was like, well, not in court, but when they were talking to the judge asking for a continuance and stuff, and that guy brought it up, and the judge was like, don't do that, that's effed up, like have that whole back and forth like stricken from the record, talking to the cartographer. So it is kind of messed up because he was trying to say like, right, Mickey's like, what does his circumstances have to do, because he's trying to make take whatever he can to use against Mickey and take him down. It's like, right, you're good, but if I can like nudge it a little more my direction by not being dismissive, kind of, but showing that he's not the best person to take over this, especially considering the whole Jerry angle of it. So that plus your drug use in the past. So, but Mickey was reluctant to do it. He was going to ask for a continuance, but it's just he was reluctant to go to wanting to go to trial like the following week, like Trevor wanted. And so Mickey's like, I'm doing, and then Trevor is like, no, if he won't say it, I'll say it, which is like, no, your lawyer's here to represent you. Get yourself in line, Trevor. And so him and Mickey talk, which Mickey's like, why are you so adamant about this? Like, what are you not telling me? Turns out Trevor someone is going to be basically purchasing, or at least getting the rights to the technology and stuff like that. There's going to be like a buyout type of thing. And so all he has left now that basically his reputation, his wife, his marriage is all gone now. He has nothing left except for his legacy. So it means the world to him. So he's trying to the sooner this is over with, the sooner, because the buyout is going to be harder to do. The acquisition, rather, is the word they use specifically. The acquisition is being kind of put on hold while all this is going down. So he wants this done with as soon as possible so that the acquisition could go through and his legacy will be cemented, because if this doesn't go through, his legacy is lost and then he will literally have nothing. So it is kind of jacked up that it's like, right, you're trying to push for that. That's your motive behind all this. I mean, you want to clear your name, but you also have a monetary reason why you're trying to do it, which is understandable. But the point is that he points out that Mickey's in the same boat. It's like, right, this isn't just my last shot. This is also your shot too, because you need this just as much as I do. Just as much as I need this so I can hold on to my legacy, you need it, because he'd even had this argument with Cisco and Lorna, where they were saying like, right, you don't have to win this case. And he's like, yes, I do. Because if I lose, I will be known as the person who had a second chance, came back just to lose a big case. Because it's a high profile case like this. If he fails, like, it's just almost like, oh, because, you know, it's like your comeback means nothing, and this will dry up any future work. Because people are like, oh, you kind of lost that high profile case after coming back after a year, plus your whole drug abuse thing, which is why you were going for a year. Like, a lot of that's going to stack. So what Lorna kept being like, oh, he keeps motivating himself. Once again, this is what Maggie was worried about. Like, if he goes to, like, this high-profile case, like, if he loses it, things go sideways, he's going to crash and burn hard. And he's made a lot of progress in the past year trying to make amends and trying to make things good between him and Maggie and Haley. So, don't want to undo all that. So, even though he doesn't want to do it, because he also doesn't want to tell... Because he had the opportunity. He could have walked away from this case, but he can't, because he is someone that enjoys a fight. Once again, as Lorna said last episode, even with his hands tied behind his back, he prefers a good fight. So he's going to keep pushing forward, even though at that time they didn't have any evidence, because they were trying to find out what Jerry had. Turns out Jerry was going to ask for a continuance because he needed more time to gather evidence. At least that's what it seemed like. But also... because the problem is, Mickey would have asked for one. He wanted to ask for one, like, even before, like, we got to the later parts of the episode. But it's because they were still trying to search for any evidence that Jerry may have had, like, you know, anything on the side that would have helped them in the long run when it came to this case. They were trying to find out anything that he had about it, but every time they kept making a turn, it never worked out. They could never find what Jerry may have hidden. The fact is, he took some of the money that Trevor had given him, and there's a casino, and they're like, right. Because we was talking to Izzy, being like, right, maybe he was just like us, you know, whereas like drugs was their vice, maybe gambling was his. But the fact is, there's a Nocturna billboard nearby, so part of me wonders, was there some significance? I mean, because Mickey goes to look at it, but I guess that was just him focusing on the case, being like, no, I can't give up. But it makes you wonder, there has to be, maybe, well, because later on they talked to his assistant, who it seems like there was a thing going on between them, but it turns out Jerry did have a magic bullet. They just don't know what it is. She doesn't know what it is. Whatever it is was either something that was in his laptop, said laptop that was stolen when he was murdered, or he has it stashed somewhere else, but they wouldn't even know where to begin looking. You'll also have Mickey gathering up some of the clients that kind of threatened Jerry, and was able to convince the judge to, like, hey, allow me to pass this on to Detective Griggs. So he does, which Griggs is kind of like, right, you should know, like, you're handing us off something that you don't know what we're looking for. It's like, yeah, but also at the same time, Mickey is doing his best. Because also, it's not even just about the client angle of, like, right, like, if you do that, like, your clients are going to be pissed because you throw them under the bus. But it's also, the cops being able to just get that information willy-nilly. Like, oh, show us, like, Mickey doing that would be unraveling the law. Like, things are meant to be that way. The client attorney privilege is meant, like, you overturn, like, that's going to undo all the, like, police work you do anyway. So, like, having Mickey break that rule or make an exception, it's going to be evidence from the fruit from the poisonous tree or something like that. I always butcher the saying, but it's like, right, all that evidence will become inadmissible because you got it by, like, non-legal means, because you cut some corners here and there. So Mickey's helping out the best he can, because the judge will only give him this little bit of a wiggle room. Because he also points out, and he was able to justify it because of what Detective Griggs said, that if whoever killed Jerry did it because of his cases or his clients, then now as someone who took over his clients, it puts Mickey's life in danger. So So what Detective Griggs said last episode really got to him, because especially because it's like, right, you know, I brought it up. He had just talked to Haley about that nightmare of like leaving her behind, like if he died. So that was even more motivation to like, no, after I was kind of absent, not there, I think, for her. I mean, we might find out he might have not just not been there. He might have messed up in more ways that we really don't know yet of what he was doing in like that that year he was away, that he maybe some stuff happened while he was high that really plays into why Maggie doesn't trust him and why he's kind of having to rebuild his relationship back up with Haley to some extent, because you could tell like it seems like she's trying to be there for her dad, trying to be supportive of him, but also it seems like there's a little bit of an awkwardness there, I think, because they haven't really found their ebb and flow again, I think, but you know, we'll see. Cisco did go visit a private investigator that Jerry had hired, and apparently Jerry was PI was working the Trevor case, but was pulled off. And I guess I wonder, does it have any correlation to that magic bullet that he found? Because the PI says that Jerry started getting secretive and was kind of nervous and scared, which actually plays into the first episode, why he was so on edge, like why he checked behind, like why he was kind of assuming like someone was going to be there. He seemed like he was on edge and was kind of expecting it, you know, because why would you go out of your way to look like, oh, you know, like horror movies are going to make horror, or like movies of something of that nature of what happened to him will make you kind of paranoid about that, but why would you even have that inkling in the first place? So something had him on edge for the past couple weeks leading up to his death. So, but the way Cisco talks about it, it's like, yeah, but that guy's also hiding something. Like the PI is not telling him everything. So that's definitely interesting. I didn't talk about it, but we also got a little bit more about the person that was following Mickey and Izzy at the end of the last episode. Luckily, Izzy, putting her driving skills to the test, was able to lose them. But later on, we find out the reason why. Well, they were later outside of Mickey's house, and he saw them, but when he was trying to confront them, they drove away. Well, later on, we find out that they have the Lincoln bugged. So we do see they have a camera and they have this whole thing. So the question then becomes like, all right, like, are they an investigator in their own right? Are they the killer? Like, what are their circumstances? Because we did see, like, apparently there was like a photographer or whatever that got footage of when. Cause it didn't look like it was police footage. It looked like someone else. Because I think they even said it was like a photographer or something got the footage of Trevor getting arrested. And it's like whoever it was listening to a police scanner. So I'm wondering if it's that same person, you know. Are they going to try and use this information? Like, this could be like the prosecutor's own investigator doing all of this. They might not necessarily be the killer. I wonder in the end, you know, once again, we'll find out over the course of the season, but just, you know, let you know my thought process currently. I am curious. I get the feeling like we're probably going to find out that Jerry's murder might have had nothing to do with Trevor's case. It seems like it's the most plausible one, but obviously they've thrown out there the possibility like it might be others. We'll have to wait and see. Because Mickey did say this interesting thing where I guess the way things have played out over the course of this episode, he'd go like, right, I wasn't completely sure. Certain things in this episode made him start questioning whether or not Jerry was the person he thought he was. It's like, I wasn't really sure what Jerry was capable of, so made him kind of question the way he approached things as a lawyer, I think, in certain regards. Like maybe Jerry might cut some corners, or he might have wasn't too above doing some shady stuff. It seemed like that's kind of what Mickey was implying. This episode also tackled an interesting thing where Lorna is kind of like upset about the Izzy thing, and even Izzy's like, oh, does Lorna not like me? It's like, no, she's just overprotective, because it's like, right, this is someone you've known for like 10 minutes or something. He's like, yeah, but you know, I have a gut feeling about this stuff, so I think given enough time, they're going to work past that. Like once Lorna gets to spend more time with her and get to know her, but because she's a little reluctant about Izzy. I mean, Haley and Izzy kind of like, it doesn't seem like Izzy has any issue. I mean, Haley doesn't seem to have any issue with Haley. God, I keep saying sorry. Haley doesn't have any issues with Izzy. I'm sorry, had a bit of a brain fart there. She did say an interesting line of dialogue where it's basically like, right, Izzy wasn't the first person that her dad is hired. Like, it was like, I guess, like, at least someone with, like, a criminal record or something, because it's like, oh, how much time did you do? Which Izzy's like, I didn't serve any time, thanks to your dad. But it seems like he's gotten maybe other clients to drive him in the past, too. So, Izzy isn't the first, which is kind of interesting, which makes sense, because he did kind of imply, like, he has been driven around in the past, just because his, the Lincoln is his, office and stuff. Which, we know he has multiple vehicles, so I am curious. This is the one, maybe this is his main one. We know he has a few vehicles, so I'm curious is what's going to happen. Because it seemed like they're riding with this vehicle for a while, so it's probably going to be, well, they might start using the bug into their advantage, because it's like, right, you could feed false information to whoever's listening in, but they had to find out about the bug first, so we'll see how long it's going to be before they find out about what will be next episode, what will be a couple episodes from now. We'll ultimately have to wait and see on that front, but very excited to continue the show, very interested to ultimately see where everything ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.